Hello friends, welcome to or welcome back to my channel. My name is Max, my pronouns are they, them, and here we talk about all things books and reading and my experience as an autistic ADHDer. So, welcome everyone. Today we have a really exciting video. I'm doing a whole wrap up of the entirety of spring because I haven't done a wrap up since February.
They tell me that I'm never gonna make it. They want me to do something that can make sense.
Let's get in to the wrap up. If you haven't already, please feel free to grab yourself a heartwarming cup of whatever it is you fancy. I am currently drinking a dirty chai, which is not surprising for me, but this time I experimented with using my salted caramel flavoured ground coffee. I usually love that coffee. I don't know if it's from the Peanuts brand, but it has like Peanuts characters like Snoopy and stuff on the bag of coffee. I always assume it's just Peanuts coffee, but I don't know if it's like a collaboration with a usual coffee brand and Peanuts. And I used that to go with my chai. So I've never tried it before. I thought I'd experiment with the concoction. Ooh. My brain is trying to compute these two flavours that I have quite often but never together. I think I really like it. Okay, let's get into it. So, in the month of March this year, I had a massive reading slump. I made this video for my channel, I'll link it up here in the cards, where I only read, or I tried to experiment with only reading from my e-reader. So I stopped reading physical books for this whole video, well, for most of the video. It did not turn out the way I was expecting, so go watch that if you're interested. But it basically led me into this massive reading slump that I feel like I'm still trying to fully get out of it now, 3 months later. So, let's start with the first book that I read in March, which was Bitterthorn by Kat Dunn. I loved this so much. There is good plot, but I would say that it's not hugely plot driven. It's kind of driven by the concept, which is really interesting, and the characters, I would say. It's a sapphic romantasy, so if you're looking for more sapphic reads, I would definitely recommend this. I feel like obviously the romantasy genre has exploded, and I would say in terms of main characters, there isn't actually that much sapphic representation in terms of what's going on in the mainstream of romantasy. So yeah, I would really recommend this. Let's go to my Goodreads. Yeah, I gave this 5 stars. I'm not surprised I gave this 5 stars. I still love it, and I can't wait to read more from Kat Dunn. I'll read the blurbs from each of these books as well because I'm not the greatest at explaining plot or concept. So this one says, a lost soul, a darkly alluring witch, a terrifying secret. Once a generation, the witch claims a companion from the town of Bloomwald, never to be seen again. Now that time is drawing near once more. Mina, daughter of the Duke, has lost all hope of any future in Bloomwald, so when the witch appears, Mina offers herself up, though she has no idea what fate awaits her. Stranded with her darkly alluring captor, the mystery of what happened to the previous companions draws Mina into the heart of a terrifying secret. Definitely recommend. Now, here's where the giving up physical books and only reading from my e-reader comes in, because I tried to read A Winter's Promise by Christelle Dabos. I'd been recommended this series, and everything that I'd read about it, the synopsis, all of that, I really thought it's my cup of tea, I'll love this. And that's why I chose it for the first book to read from my e-reader, because I thought, oh, that will be easy for me to get into and I'll have a fun time and I'll want to keep reading from the e-reader. I did not. I did not enjoy this at all. I really struggled to get into it. I don't know what it was. It just felt like I wasn't having a fun time. So I DNF'd. Oh, then I tried to read Mortal Follies by Alexis Hall, and I really was enjoying that. It was really bizarre, but also very comical. But I just was really struggling to read from the e-reader. I wasn't enjoying it. I remember in the video commenting on how much I love the physical activity, the physical sensation from reading from a physical book. It contributes to the experience for me so much, and I just was not having fun reading like I normally do. So I gave up. Definitely go watch that video if you're interested in seeing that process, because it was a fun time. I gave up, I went to the bookstore. I was away at the time visiting my friend, and I decided for that video to only bring my e-reader with me and not bring any physical books with me at all. And I caved and I went to the bookstore and I purchased Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars, and I think it could have been higher, but I'm only saying that for the sentimentality of it, because this is a crime novel and it is about a murder, but it's almost like in that genre of cozy murder mystery. So if you like that kind of thing, I would definitely recommend this, because it's also very, very clever. Goodreads says, Alan Conway is a best-selling crime writer. His editor, Susan Ryland, has worked with him for years, and she's intimately familiar with his detective, Atticus Punt, who solves mysteries disturbing sleepy English villages. Alan's traditional formula pays homage to queens of classic British crime, such as Agatha Christie and Dorothy Sayers. It's proved hugely successful. So successful that Susan must continue to put up with his troubling behaviour if she wants to keep her job. When Susan receives Alan's latest manuscript, in which Atticus Punt investigates a murder at Pye Hall, an English manor house, she has no reason to think it will be any different from the others. There will be dead bodies, a cast of intriguing suspects, and plenty of red herrings and clues. But the more Susan reads, the more she realises that there's another story hidden in the pages of the manuscript. One of ambition, jealousy, and greed, and that soon it will lead to murder. The format of this is so interesting. I've never seen it done before, where the whole of the first half of the book is you reading this character of Alan Conway's novel that he's written, and then the second half of the book is about, in the actual world that the book is set, solving the crime that is associated with this character's novel. I hope I've explained that in a way that makes sense. But it's so good, and I'm really interested to read. I think there's 2 more of them. There's certainly another one which is called Moonflower Murders, and then I think Anthony Horowitz is also writing a 3rd. Also, I know I've talked about this on the channel before, there was a BBC series based on Magpie Murders, and they are bringing out a 2nd series based on the 2nd book, Moonflower Murders, which I'm really excited about, because the 1st season was really, really good. Very, very solid 4 out of 5 stars. Next, we have Wild Things by Laura Kay. I have such a soft spot for this book. It's so sweet. Oh, and bearing in mind, we are already on the 24th of March. I last updated this book. On my Goodreads, I mean. So this is only book number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I DNF'd 2 of those books. So that's how March went for me. But this was exactly what I needed. It's such a cute story. So, blurb says, Elle has been in love with her best friend since the moment they met, but Ray has no idea. Stuck in life as well as in love, Elle needs a major transformation. Resolving on New Year's Eve to be more wild, Elle commits to 1 small tattoo, 1 bad hangover, and 1 very disappointing threesome. But she's trying. Surely it can only get better. When a plan is hatched for Elle, Ray, and their 2 closest friends to swap city lights for a ramshackle fixer-upper in the countryside, Elle can hardly say no. This is her chance. The perfect wild thing. It's so wholesome and so sweet, and sapphic too, if you're looking for a cute little sapphic romance that has lots of subplots of found family. Wonderful. Also, and I know I've said this on my channel before, look how gorgeous this cover is and these colours. I love this colour combination. The blue, the green, the pink, the orange. Stunning. Soup. Oh, yep. Oh, yay. Next we have one that I'm really excited about. And that is Juno Dawson's The Shadow Cabinet. I love these books so much. This is only the second Juno Dawson book I've read. The first was Her Majesty's Royal Coven, which is the first one in the series that this is the second one of. I feel like this is just one of those books, and I feel like I've said this before as well, where so many of the things that I love to read are combined into one series. This is witchy. This has so much queer representation. It is bonkers, which obviously is so great. There's trans representation, there's queer representation, there's sapphic representation. There's a total found family vibe with the main group of women, but it's also so magical. Great writing, great story, such a good plot. And I can't wait to read more Juno Dawson, honestly. I actually took out Wonderland by Juno Dawson from the library the other day, which I know is YA, but I just saw it and I thought, I really want to read more Juno Dawson, so I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna pause now for a few minutes because my mother's using the hairdryer. And we're back. Yeah, so really excited to read Wonderland by Juno Dawson as well. But the Shadow Cabinet says it's quite hefty. All is not as it seems within the halls of Her Majesty's Royal Coven. Despite thinking that they've thwarted the prophecy, the witches are still reeling from the past events of the last few months. Kira now occupies her twin sister's body as she prepares to take on the role of High Priestess. But why are the sinister government agents of the Shadow Cabinet so invested in her coronation? And there's a small matter of Dabney Hale. Freshly escaped from Greerling's prison, he's now on the run and on the hunt for a mythical object that will give him unimaginable power. Leonie's brother is close behind, but doesn't know the danger he now faces, and so she sets off to bring him home and bring Hale to justice. Meanwhile, Theo and Holly are left to their own devices. Theo to work out how her miraculous transformation took place, and Holly to discover what's going on with her mum and dad. Elle's Instagram perfect world is about to come crashing down in the most terrifying way. Payback's a witch, as Kira, Leonie, Elle, Theo and Holly are about to find out. It's just glorious. Such a juicy world, such a juicy concept, such juicy characters. I've never read anything like this trilogy before. Definitely recommend. What do we have next? Ooh, this next book got me on a whole dark academia kick that I'm still going strong with, and that is A Lesson in Vengeance by Veronica Lee. This was really enjoyable, although I only gave it 3 stars. And I think that's just because in some way it fell flat for me, but I can't really put my finger on why that is. Blurb says, Felicity Morrow is back at the Dalloway School, a centuries-old ivy-covered campus that was home until the tragic death of her girlfriend. She even has her old room in Godwin House, the exclusive dormitory rumoured to be haunted by the spirits of five Dalloway students. Girls, some say, were witches. Witchcraft is woven into Dalloway's past. The school doesn't talk about it, but the students do. In secret rooms and shadowy corners, girls convene. And before her girlfriend died, Felicity was drawn to the dark. She's determined to leave that behind now, but it's hard when Dalloway's occult history is everywhere, and when the new girl won't let her forget. It's Ellis Haley's first year at Dalloway. A prodigy novelist at 17, Ellis is eccentric and brilliant, and Felicity can't shake the pull she feels to her. So when Ellis asks Felicity for help researching the Dalloway Five for her second book, Felicity can't say no. And when history begins to repeat itself, Felicity will have to face the darkness in Dalloway and in herself. This is really enjoyable if you're looking for a very atmospheric, dark academia, sapphic, murder mystery book with some haunting vibes. Definitely recommend. I probably wouldn't pick it up again, but I would be interested to read more of Victoria Lee's work because it was very good. I think it was more just a preference thing that it was only 3 stars for me. I say only 3 stars, but 3 stars for me still is like a hefty score. Like it still felt like a really enjoyable read. I feel like most of the time though, if I give something 4 stars or higher, it's more so that I have some sort of a sentimental feeling towards it, whether that's towards like the characters or the setting or the world, but this didn't give me those vibes, so 3 stars, very good read. And that was the last book that I read in April. So now we're into May, and because of A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee, I was very inspired to read Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca. It's mentioned a few times in A Lesson in Vengeance, and so it gave me the motivation to read it because I've really been wanting to read Rebecca for a very long time. But obviously, because it's a classic, I was kind of apprehensive about it. But I'm really glad I read it, and it was fabulous. I feel like with many classic books, I feel this way. It was slow to starting. It was harder to get into it than it was like in the last half of the book, say. If you're wanting to read a classic but you're not sure about where to begin, I would definitely recommend Rebecca because it's gripping, especially in the second half. I gave it 3.5 stars and I put thoroughly enjoyed as my Goodreads review. Sometimes I don't write a review. Sometimes I only write a few words, and then when I'm really enthusiastic about a book, I'll write a paragraph, probably no more. I definitely feel like Rebecca is one of those novels that I would read again in like 10 years time maybe. I feel like it's one of those ones where I want to experience reading it as an older version of myself and see if I absorb it differently or if my opinion changes about it or anything like that. The Goodreads book description says, "Last night I dreamt I went to Manderley again. Ancient beautiful Manderley, between the rose garden and the sea, is the country's showpiece. Rebecca made it so. Even a year after her death, Rebecca's influence still rules there. How can Maxim de Winter's shy new bride ever fill her place or escape her vital shadow? A shadow that grows longer and darker as the brief summer fades, until, in a moment of climactic revelations, it threatens to eclipse Manderley and its inhabitants completely." Ooh, it's so mysterious, and honestly, I really didn't see the ending coming. And for that reason, if you like the kind of crime, mystery, thriller genre, I would definitely recommend reading Rebecca. Wow, it has an overall 4.24 stars on Goodreads, and that is from 635,750 ratings. So I think that speaks for itself. Ooh. Next we have a really good one. Actually, the next few are really good ones, but let's start with what I read next, which was A Narrow Door by Joanne Harris. Now, a couple of things to say about this. I love this cover. Oh, Cyrus Bean! The dog is knocking on the door. Coming to join me? Yeah, come on then. Come on then, buddy. Come on then, here he is. Oh, look at this. He's just had a haircut. Are you gorgeous? Oh yeah. Lovely kisses, thank you very much. So, glorious shiny ivy and stuff on the front, which is great, but also this is the showstopper part. Look at those ivy covered edges. Oh my gosh, so pretty. And also, this is a signed copy and I got it in the charity shop for £1. Where is she? There she is, Miss Joanne Harris herself. I have not been known to be a Joanne Harris fan. I haven't read the classics, I haven't read Chocolat, but I saw this in the charity shop and I thought it was stunning, obviously, and so I purchased because the blurb sounded great. It says, "It's an incendiary moment for St Oswald's School. For the first time in its history, a head mistress is in power. The gates are opening to girls. Rebecca Buckfast has spilled blood to reach this position. Barely 40, she is just starting to reap the harvest of her ambition. As the new regime takes on the old guard, the ground shifts, and with it, the remains of a body are discovered. But Rebecca is here to make her mark. She'll bury the past so deep, it will evade even her own memory, just like she has done before. After all, you can't keep a good woman down." This was just fantastic. I found out after reading this book that this is actually the third in a series of books that Joanne Harris has written within the setting of St Oswald's School, but you can read them in a different order, like you don't have to read them in that order, which is great because obviously I read this one first and this is the third. The audiobook was also excellent. This is a dual POV, so it kind of alternates between the character of Rebecca Buckfast and one of the men who is a professor in the school. And the part of Rebecca Buckfast in the audiobook was read by Alex Kingston, who is a fabulous actress and just made this all the more enjoyable to read. I feel like there's some audiobooks where you don't really notice so much that you're listening to an audiobook as you're reading, which is great. There's some audiobooks that actually turn you off from reading the book because it feels like they don't fit or they're just not good. And then there's some audiobooks where it enhances the enjoyment of the reading process, and this was definitely one of them. I gave this 4.5 stars, would definitely recommend. I actually gave it to my mum to read after I read it and she loved it as well. So that was the second book that I read in May, the first being Rebecca. This is the third, and that is the reappearance of Rachel Price. Now, I feel like this book has been spoken about so much already, but I will tell you a bit about it. This is a Holly Jackson book. Obviously, Holly Jackson wrote the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy and 5 Survive, which are all, I'm pretty sure, must be international bestsellers. But blurb says, 18-year-old Belle has lived her whole life in the shadow of her mum's mysterious disappearance. 16 years ago, Rachel Price vanished, and young Belle was the only witness. Rachel is gone, presumed dead. The case is dragged up from the past when the Price family agrees to a true crime documentary. Belle can't wait for filming to end, for life to go back to normal. But then, Rachel Price reappears, and life will never be normal again. Lights, camera, lies. I love that little dramatic tagline thing. So this was a glorious read. My sister actually bought me this copy because she was buying one for herself and I was like, I can't not buy you a copy as well. So grateful for that because this was fantastic. I really enjoyed the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. 5 Survive, not as much. It just felt like a completely different vibe from the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. It was a lot more thriller with the crime happening in the moment of the book. Whereas with the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy and with this one, it almost felt like the incident or the crime or whatever had already happened, and through the book we were going through the process of finding out what happened and like being involved in watching the case unfold. So yeah, this was absolutely fantastic. I gave this 4.25 stars. Would definitely recommend. Next, we're back again onto the dark academia kick, reading The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. I've heard people pronounce Alex Michaelides before in that way, but when I read it, it really doesn't look like it says Michaelides. It looks like it says Michaelides. So if you know how to pronounce this surname, please let me know. He is also the author of The Silent Patient, which I was never really drawn to read, honestly, because I was judging a book by its cover. But now that I've read this, I'm a lot more intrigued. This is The Maidens, and I spoke about it in my last video where I did like a book haul for the second half of the video. But let me share with you what it's about. The Maidens are Cambridge University's most exclusive society, whose members are selected by the charismatic professor of Greek tragedy, Edward Fosker. When one of the Maidens is murdered, grieving young therapist Mariana Andros is drawn back to the idyllic campus where she was once herself a student. Because beneath the university's ancient traditions and beauty is a web of secrets, jealousy and lies. And when the killer threatens the person she loves most, Mariana will give anything to stop them, even her own life. This was just absolutely fantastic. So well written. Sorry, I'm like looking down to try and get into my Goodreads to see what I gave this 5 stars and my review was absolutely fantastic. My second 6-star read of 2024. So I loved this. I actually started annotating a bunch of the beginning of it because it's so clever and I found some of the writing to be so glorious. I felt like, oh, the chapters are really short as well, which is obviously really fun for the process of reading the book because it feels like it's a really good pace. It feels like it's quite snappy. I feel like what he does really well, or at least what he did really well in this book, was to set up the imagery of the setting of each chapter before action or dialogue or anything like that took place. So this is a really good example of this. It's the very beginning of a chapter, second sentence, and this is what it says. The columns were very old and discoloured, with cracks running through them like veins. They cast long shadows on the floor, plunging the women into occasional darkness as they wandered between them. I just felt like that was such a great way of just searing this image into your mind so that you know exactly what this scene is supposed to look like as it's happening, because as soon as that sentence has happened, the dialogue begins. So you know exactly visually what's happening as they're having this conversation. It's just so good. Definitely recommend if you're looking for a dark academia, or even if you've read The Silent Patient and liked it, please read this one. Let me know down below if you've read The Silent Patient and if you think I should read it, because I'm intrigued, but I really don't like the cover, so it's turned me off. Okay, next we have a bit of a fun one. I read If You Kiss Me Like That by Harper Bliss. I've read a Harper Bliss before and enjoyed it. Harper Bliss is basically just the person that I turn to for a really cheesy sapphic romance when I'm in the mood for that. The audiobook of this though was so problematic for me. I'm getting ahead of myself though. Let me tell you what this is about. Goodreads book description says, sometimes love shows up where you least expect it. Ashley Ash Cooper is still reeling after her recent divorce, throwing all her energy into her job in the city. When she's seated next to one of her mother's friends at a family party, falling in love is the last thing on her mind. After losing her husband many years ago, Gloria Young rebuilt herself as a single parent. Now that her daughters are both at university, she's perfectly content with her quiet life in the village of Murraywood. An unexpectedly enjoyable evening with a friend's daughter pushes Gloria into exploring a new side of herself. Will she overcome her fear of what people think and allow herself a new chance at happiness? And can Ash let go of the past and open herself up to love again? It was very sweet, it was very cute, it was also a little bit spicy in places and very, very cheesy in places, but for what I was looking for, it served its purpose. Okay, back to the problematic audiobook. Let me find out who it was read by, because I really did not enjoy it at all. The one thing that I think stunted the flow of the audiobook a bit was there was a lot of blah 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 blah, he said, blah 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 blah, she said, blah 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 blah, he said. There was just too much of that. There was too much said. I feel like once you've established one person and then the other person, your brain knows that it's going to alternate. You don't need to say he said, she said all the time. There are other ways of going about that, you know? Carmen Rose is who read the audiobook. It just felt very robotic and like not as though it was flowing. Robotic is really the word that I would use to describe how she used her voice, and it was just not enjoyable. I listened to it anyway because I didn't have the physical copy and I wanted to read this book, so do with that what you will. Next we have Andre Osserman's The Gentleman from Peru. I think I might be saying Osserman wrong, I don't know. This fell a bit flat for me. I think I also talked about this in my last video because I purchased this recently. This is such a beautiful looking book and marketed so well. But yeah, it just fell a bit flat for me. It's really short, lovely little story, enjoyable but nothing spectacular. I gave it 3 stars. Then I tried to read another book in the same series as this Joanne Harris one, and I DNF'd. It was called Different Class, set in the same setting, St Oswald's School, and this is what I wrote. DNF'd at 52 pages. I wanted to read this one after finishing A Narrow Door and absolutely loving it, but I really struggled to get into this one. I didn't care enough about Straightly, who is the main narrator character, or the boy slash new headmaster, can't remember his name, to continue reading. With A Narrow Door, I felt like I was gripped from the very beginning, but different class was moving too slowly for me. And I remember as well at the time I had other things that I was really excited to read, so I just DNF'd. Life's too short. Oh, so we're on the last two and they're both great ones. Next, I read Susanna Clarke's Piranesi. This is such an unusual book, but so juicy for such a short one as well. This was spectacular. I gave this book 4.25 stars in the end. Originally, I gave this 3.5 stars immediately after reading it and wrote, fun, very clever, I enjoyed it. The only reason I didn't give it a higher rating is just personal preference. I would recommend it. But I changed my review and said, edit. Changing my review to 4.25 stars because I keep thinking about this book. It's just so clever. And that is exactly what I would say about it. I cannot even imagine how Susanna Clarke's mind would come up with this. It's so cool. Blurb says, Piranesi lives in the house. Perhaps he always has. Then messages begin to appear, scratched out in chalk on the pavements. There is someone new in the house. But who are they and what do they want? Lost texts must be found. Secrets must be uncovered. The world that Piranesi thought he knew is becoming strange and dangerous. The beauty of the house is immeasurable. Its kindness infinite. I know that doesn't actually really say much, but I feel like this is one of those books where you kind of need to go into it a little bit blind, and you kind of need to go into it accepting that you will be a bit confused at the beginning, but please persist, it's wonderful. And lastly, the last book that I read of spring, and actually I finished it on the 3rd of June, but I'm still counting it, is The Cloisters by Katie Hayes. I know I also did say a little bit about this in my last video, but not much, so I just feel like this just gets added to the list of brilliant dark academia books that I've read in the last couple of months, and that's the main reason why I picked. Off he goes.
Would you just give me a hand with something for 1 minute?
Okay. I just had to go help my mum with something and I've forgotten what I already said about The Cloisters. Can't remember where I left you. The tagline of this book says, if death was in the cards, would you want to know? Intrigue. So, blurb says, Anne Stillwell arrives in New York, hoping to spend the summer working at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Instead, she is assigned to the Cloisters, the Met's Gothic museum and garden, renowned for its collection of medieval and Renaissance art. Drawn into a small circle of charismatic but enigmatic researchers, Anne is happy to indulge some of their more outlandish theories, including those of the museum's curator, who is fixated on tarot and the possibility of divination. But then she discovers a mysterious, once believed lost, deck of 15th century Italian tarot cards and finds herself playing a dangerous game of toxic friendship and unbridled ambition. As things begin to spiral out of control, the modern and the arcane collide in this thrillingly told tale of obsession and the ruthless pursuit of power. This was so atmospheric and yes, thrilling. I did feel that in the very middle of the book there was a bit of a lull in terms of what was going on and plot and stuff, but I would still 100% recommend. I've heard this described as a cross between The Secret History by Donna Tartt and Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I haven't yet read Ninth House, but it does definitely have a bit of a secret history vibe. So if you're on the lookout for new recommendations of dark academia, I would definitely recommend this. I would definitely recommend Joanne Harris's A Narrow Door. I would definitely recommend The Maidens, and potentially also A Lesson in Vengeance if you're looking for it also to be sapphic. So yeah, they are my spring reads. Thank you so much for joining me. Please let me know down below if you've read any of these books and if you have any opinions, especially if they're different to mine. I would love to hear. Please subscribe if you haven't already, if you're enjoying my videos and you want to see more. It's free to do so and it really helps me. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Bye! Also, keep your eyes peeled for an exciting new project coming soon. Bye! I have not known to be, no, words. Oh yeah, I remember what happens now. Oh, I just keep remembering that I'm having pizza for lunch. Yes. Would you like some more spray? I'm in such a good mood today. I think my camera's on the wrong setting. Can you see that? Wowee. Don't knock the camera. Oh, you're so gorgeous. Thanks, buddy. Have a rub. You done? Yeah, okay, cool. For St. For St. Oswald's school. I can't say St. Oswald's. Ah, come on.